On today's episode of the Carolina Sports Guy, well, we've covered about everything, folks, but we haven't done Coastal Carolina. Gonna give a little shout out to the Chanticleers. If you've not subscribed to this channel, please do so. It doesn't cost anything. Hit that bell notification to be notified of other content such as the Carolina Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes, Charlotte Hornets, and major college sports in the Carolinas. Pound the like button. Also, leave some comments. Let me know what you'd like to see in future episodes of the Carolina Sports Guy. All right, guys, Uncle Chucky here. I've kind of covered every of the 11 schools I said I'd cover to begin with. I've covered all 5 of the ACC schools in the Carolina. I've covered South Carolina basketball in the SEC so far. Talked about East Carolina. We've done one on Appalachian State. We've covered a video on UNC Charlotte's 77 Final Four team. Kind of really, even Davidson College and their basketball history. We've covered everyone under sun. And I just kind of want to do a really quick video on Coastal Carolina. This is a school I believe has only been around since, the 1950s, if I'm not mistaken. And they do have the nickname Chanticleers. It's a state school. The new Gamecocks in South Carolina is very big. So you're talking about like fighting roosters. Some people wanted to change the name and others said, no, let's just keep it. But they've only been in the FBS since 2017. Now, let's deal with the football first. They have had 6 FCS playoffs. That's the Football Championship Series. And they have a 4-6 record. So they didn't win any championships when they were in the Big South. In fact, I know they played Appalachian State sometimes in the playoffs and played a couple other schools, but they never won. They did win a couple of games. Like I said, they won 4 over a period of so many years. But they do have 7 Big South titles. So I guess one of those titles they got, they weren't invited into the FCS playoffs. And then, of course, this past year in 2020, they won their very first Sun Belt title, which is, like I said, an FBS. That's quite an accomplishment. Now, 2003 was their very first football season, okay? And their FCS rivals was Liberty from Virginia, Charleston Southern. These were their 2 biggest rivals in the FCS. Now, I'd say now in the Sun Belt, Appalachian State's a big rival, and Georgia Southern. Kind of puts that South Carolina-Georgia mentality, that North Carolina-South Carolina rivalry. The 2014 is the first ever FCS. They were ranked number 1 in the FCS because they didn't win it all, but they did make it that high in the ranking. Their first ever FBS win over a ranked opponent was October 14th, 2020, and they beat Louisiana Lafayette 30-27, who was number 21 at the time. The very next week is when Coastal Carolina made their very first appearance at number 25, about October 21st of last year. They reached as high as number 11 in the country. They had to forfeit a game with COVID going on with Liberty. I say forfeit, they didn't play it. They ended up swinging in within less than a week's notice. BYU came calling and went down to Conway, South Carolina to play Coastal Carolina, and they beat them. Very big win for Coastal Carolina. But they wrapped up their season 11-0. Went and played a 2020 Cure Bowl. They couldn't get away from Liberty. They had to play Liberty. Liberty beats them 37-34. Very close, hard-fought game. So the perfect season was squashed. But very, very big season for Coastal Carolina. And I think with recruiting, you're going to see a lot of things that are going to happen with the school. You go back and look at Josh Norman, the cornerback, who's played for the Panthers and the football team, and now Buffalo. Mike Tolbert played running back for San Diego, played for Coastal Carolina. Then he went on to play for Carolina and Buffalo. This year, I believe the 6th round, Teron Jackson, who's a defensive end, was drafted by Philadelphia. They've had a running back, Angelo Henderson, playing for Denver. A running back, Lorenzo Taliaferro, playing for Baltimore. Wide receiver, Matt Hazel, played for Miami. Quarterback Tyler Thigpen a few years back played for the Minnesota Vikings, and then they had a wide receiver that played very well for the Cincinnati Bengals some years ago, Jerome Simpson. So they put some talent out there as they moved up into the FBS, if they've been competing and playing, and I expect you'll see more great seasons from Coastal Carolina because South Carolina is a football crazy state. School colors, teal, bronze, and black. I want to throw that out there. Yes, the Chanticleers. we're going to talk them up. Now, baseball is a very impressive sport with Coastal Carolina. They are the 2016 NCAA champs. As a matter of fact, they won that championship just like the day before they ended up joining FBS Sun Belt. Like the championship, when that title was won for baseball for Coastal Carolina to be the national champions of the whole country in Division I, the very next day they started the FBS being in the Sun Belt Conference. So it's kind of interesting that happened. But look, that year in 2017, it wasn't even probably the best year they had. They got on a roll. They went to Raleigh and played in a regional, and they beat NC State in Raleigh. Then they went to the Super Regional in Baton Rouge, which by far is the most populated stadium in college baseball. They beat LSU in the Super Regional. Then they made the College World Series and dodging all surprise hopes, a Cinderella story. They'd take it all, and they beat Arizona in the championship. Now, some of the things about baseball, they've been a number one regional seed in 2005, 2007, 2008, 2010, 2018, and the 2010 year, they actually hosted a super regional. They won the regional in 2008, 2010, and 2016. So, they hosted one, and the other two, they were on the road, that they still won those regional championships. But like I said, 2016 is the one year they won the super regional and went on to win the whole thing. Very impressive. But they've had many appearances baseball-wise in the NCAA tournament. 91, 2001, 2002, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 2015, 18, and 19. So, these are years that I guess they won their division, that they've really just excelled in baseball. They're Sun Belt champs in 2018 and 2019 in baseball. The tourney champs, I mean. And they also, won the conference tournament 2017 and 2018 as well. So baseball is just like football, very impressive. Now, the one sport they haven't really done well, but I just want to touch on, is basketball. I had kind of hard to find anything, the rivalries in the Big South Conference before they moved on now into the Sun Belt was with Winthrop, a North Carolina school, Liberty, and Winthrop could be South Carolina. I know it's one of the Carolinas. Liberty's a Virginia school, and then Charleston, which is South Carolina. Those are the big rivalries. In 1990 to 1993, they had a very impressive player in basketball by the name of Tony Dunkin. He came in as a freshman and started for Coastal Carolina. But in the 4 years that Tony Dunkin played for Coastal Carolina, it was a Big South at this point in time. It's a very small to mid-level conference. He was named Player of the Year of that conference, his freshman year, sophomore year, his junior year, and senior year. And he is the only player in NCAA basketball history, Division I, who's ever won the most valuable player of their conference for 4 years. The only one, Tony Dunkin. I wanted to give that shout out to him. That's impressive. Now, as far as basketball, the NCAA tournament, they're 0-4 all time. They made their first tournament in 1991, were beaten. In 1993, one of those years I believe they played Indiana. 2014 and in 2015. So they haven't really had an impressive run. And of course, they're 0-2 all time in the NIT tournament as well. So they're still waiting for their first tournament win in the big dance, even in the small dance of the NIT. So folks, that's really all I have on Coastal Carolina. What do you think of today's video? Maybe I'll put another one out as this program develops. Hit that like button. Leave me some comments. Hit the bell notification to be notified of future content like this. By all means, folks, subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. And we'll see you, Uncle Chucky here, on another episode of the Carolina Sports Guy.